Welcome back. I'm James Johnson. This is my lovely mother, LaDonna. We've read the first 5 books of the Song of Ice and Fire series. We've seen the first 7 seasons. We're a week and a half from the 8th season beginning, and we're here talking about Game of Thrones theories. We are not saying anything we are espousing is absolutely correct. We have mainly been talking back and forth about things that are foreshadowed or things that might happen back and forth. We've been doing this for 5-6 years. Is that about right? You can look at the videos to see how long it's been going on. But so we do these videos because we've reached a point where we think something is worth commenting on. We may believe it's going to occur, but that doesn't mean we know for a fact it is. And we both know we don't know. So this video is called Twins. A lot of you who've seen our videos probably know exactly what this one's about. So cut straight to the chase. It is our opinion that Dany and Jon are twins. We are well aware that there is no solid evidence of this. It is all foreshadowing. I'm going to cut straight to the alleged evidence. Dany mentions that her memories from being a child are lemon trees and a place with a red door. Lemon trees, from what I can tell...
Running through Grassfield.
From what I can tell, lemon trees don't exist in this world except further south, particularly in Dorne, which means that is the place that she would be. Why would she be in Dorne? The Tower of Joy was there. And why would Ned take Dany if they were twins? Ned couldn't have taken Dany because Dany's got violet eyes in the books, blue eyes in the television show, and clearly Targaryen hair and skin, which would not have passed like Jon can pass. It's also, so when LaDonna gave Ned, when Jon was handed to Ned, Ned was told to protect him. You have to promise, because LaDonna knew Ned couldn't take Dany. Ned then in the books, went to Ashara Dane, then went home, and Ashara Dane soon thereafter killed herself, allegedly. So, and I'm not trying to get too in deep into positing theories, because we really want to talk about foreshadowing. However, I'm trying to show how it fits. So the sword Dawn is a reason why he would go to Ashara's, but I don't think he gave Ashara Dane Dawn. It says that it's passed down and not from household generation to that household's next generation, but to people who have earned it. I'm not going to get into that, but Ashara would be the right person to hand Dany to say, you need to take care of this child. Arthur Dane was sworn to the Targaryens. This is a Targaryen child. She's a woman. She's in Dorne. All these things fit. And then for her to allegedly have killed herself, that could be because she disappeared to move Dany out of the situation, or because she let Dany go and now she's super paranoid about what happened. She worries she gave Dany up. Again, positing theories. Whole point is it fits. If George R. R. Martin wanted to, it would fit. So let me talk about the foreshadowing. Twins have come up multiple times in this story. We start out the story with Jaime and Cersei as twins, who, in my opinion, are Targaryens, which is ironic for Tywin, because he treated those two as his children and not Tyrion, whereas Tyrion's his actually only child, and Jaime and Cersei are not. But that's really beside the point. It's not my point. Twins are hugely important, and they are tied up in the Targaryen mythos. They have twins as children. They marry brother and sister. Twins are hugely important to the storyline. It's also Darth Vader, Luke, and Leia. They're twins. They don't know they're twins. They end up making out. Ooh. That's also why it's so important for Martin to introduce incest at the beginning of this. He preps us for the Targaryens it being okay that they marry each other. He gives us Jaime and Cersei, showing us we don't choose who we love, and the dichotomy of, with one of them super manipulative, then that's a problem. And if the other one can't help but love the sister, is that a problem? Then we have kids like Marcella and Tommen, who weren't bad kids. They were great kids from what we can tell. Unique, but great kids from what we can tell. And incest does not in and of itself mean bad children. So Joffrey is the antithesis of that. So we've got all this dichotomy of twins being built up, and for no payoff about a twin in the end.
And the twin towers at the phrase.
The twin towers at the phrase. That's hugely important. Twins have been built up as an important thing in these books, and we have not seen that pay off yet. With the exception of Jaime and Cersei's story along the way, twins being relevant near the end makes sense because of the Targaryens, because of Jaime and Cersei, and it just makes a hell of a lot of sense. And for Jaime and Cersei, or excuse me, for Jon and Dany to find it out after the fact, it cleanses them in a lot of ways of what that meant, what that would mean to have an incestuous relationship. They don't know, so does it matter? And then it's a matter of genetics being a problem. Because really the issue is, if you have two people who know each other and are raised as children together as a family unit, that seems distasteful, abominatory.
That's been shown through psychological testing.
Yeah, so if you are raised with other individuals as children, to view them as part of your family unit, you are likely to your entire lives view them that way and never believe them to be a potential partner.
That's right.
Your brain typically doesn't work that way. It's hardwired not to.
Culturally hardwired.
So what would you like to add to this?
A lot.
Go.
You sure you're finished?
Yeah. Well, I'm not finished, but we're working through it bit by bit.
Okay. With respect to the twins, I need to clarify a few things because you're presuming everybody's read the books. Okay? Nothing against it. It's just presumed. Let's go to the Tower of Joy. Lyanna has 2 children. Again, like James says, Ned cannot take a silver-haired, violet-eyed girl up, nor he can. Now, Robert is chasing them. We know that now. All of us know that now from watching the show. He can take Jon because he looks like Lyanna. And this is why Ned told Jon not to go to that banquet, because he was afraid Robert Baratheon would look at her and go, "You're Lyanna Stark's child." I mean, that's why I told him not to go, in my opinion. But so Ned had a Sophie's choice to make. Which child am I going to save? Now, he didn't just dump Dany. And I'm going to go back to timelines in a minute just to talk about it. Both Jon and Dany have weird timelines. I mean, it's all been very obfuscated. And you know, who knows? Were they a few months apart? I don't know. What difference does it make? In this, 18-year timeline now? Does a few months of birth make a difference? History, as we know in this show, is really kind of screwed up. And there weren't great historical records at the time. So, at any rate, he has a Sophie's choice to make. When James said that he could take this child to Ashara Dane, remember they were in the Tower of Joy. He had Dawn, which was Arthur Dane, the Sword of the Morning Sword. He had an excuse to go to the Dane house. So it wouldn't look unusual. If you look up the Danes and the Dornish people around there, they're from all different houses. They come from so many different variations, characteristics. Dany could pass there. Plus, I think he was banking on Ashara and her family getting her to William Derry, who had taken Viserys away as a child. And that is what I think happened. They ultimately connected them with them. The problem is William Derry didn't live very long, and Viserys and Dany were out in the streets. That's why they call her a beggar queen. The last thing that really made Viserys snap is that he had to sell the hidden crown he had for their last meal, and then he just went off. And anyway, we'll leave that alone. So that's how it would have gotten through the Dane house. That's how Dany might have been able to survive. And then, of course, we know Illyria and Varys picked them up and protected them after that. With respect to Jon, we know what happened to him. But the clues in the book are really subtle, and in the show. Varys says that the dogs howled all night long at King's Landing when Dany was born.
Varys said that at Dragonstone to Dany.
And he did. Why would dogs howl? They might, because if she's part Stark, they might get the impression that there's some, I don't know how the warging works, but some connection, okay? Why would dogs howl? again, we've got all the twin references. There are just many, many references. I think it makes their dynamic, as James has said, much more intricate and complicated with this Ned Stark complication. And of course, he had to let Dany go while he had to protect his daughters before he dishonored himself again and was beheaded. And I think that's there for a reason. I also think his conversations with Robert Baratheon about, you will dishonor yourself if you kill this girl. I mean, he knew that he was tracking Dany down now. He even took the hand of the king off and said, if you do this, I'm out.
And let me add that all of that makes sense without Dany being Rhaegar's child. And that's how we're viewing that situation, that Ned knows Jon is a Targaryen and sees Robert seeking the death of another Targaryen child, telling him, I'm not going to be a part of this. What you're doing is dishonorable and it's not okay. And he tosses it in. And it makes sense without Dany being a twin. But if you add Dany being a twin and Ned knowing it, then those moments mean that much more.
And
because Ned saw that baby. Ned knows that baby. And if that child is fated to be killed by Robert, it's partly Ned's fault, because Ned sent that child on that path that it went on.
And he couldn't protect her from Robert, where he could kind of submerge Jon into life at Winterfell. Again, it may not be true, but honestly, there's just so many clues in the books that make it look like it. And it makes sense because we have heard a million times how the Targaryens marry brother and sister. That's what happens in the books. And the flip a coin for madness comes in. So is Jon or Dany going to flip? And if it's going to be anybody, I think it's going to be Dany. But at any rate, I am, if you can be, about 98% sure this is true. And if it's not, y'all can, who knows? Everybody has their own theory, but it makes sense to me. And it also makes sense in this particular juncture. LaDonna obviously had a difficult birth. I mean, I don't know whether she had a placenta previa and bled out, or if it was just a difficult twins birth, but she died as a result of that. And at that time, having a single child alone was difficult enough. Having twin birth while being on the road in war would be even more horrible. So just bear it in mind. We'll see.
And commonly what I get in response to this is the reference to because clearly we don't have any hard evidence. It's just about, but I say that's what Martin does. It's not about hard evidence. It's about foreshadowing generally. But the common response I get is, how do you explain the age difference? And I wrote something. Dany is allegedly 13 at the book's beginning, and Jon is allegedly 14. It's possible that either Dany was lied to about her age miscalculated by William Derry based on his belief that she was in fact Aerys's and Rhaella's daughter, born in Dragonstone, or the appearance in the books of these initial events where we're being told what's happened to Jon and we're being told what happened to Dany actually occurring at the same time is an intentional obfuscation by George R. R. Martin.
Which
any of those is possible. And their alleged age difference is actually less than a year. She was allegedly conceived during the last month of Robert's rebellion. Jon was born at the end of Robert's rebellion, actually about a month later, because Ned had to travel to the Tower of Joy. So the alleged age difference is approximately 8 to 9 months, making it even easier to hide Dany's real age from the reader. But any of those could be true.
And other people have said, well, then why wouldn't Viserion know when she joined him?
He's a kid too.
He's a kid too. I got a 2- and 3-year-old grandchildren. If I introduced a baby at this point, they wouldn't have any idea. I mean, even if they were 4, maybe pushing 5, all that past gets blurred. All of our past are pretty blurred at that age. You can tell them anything, and they're going to say, okay, that's our history. That's it. The other thing is, I found interesting that when Dany arrived at Dragonstone, she made a real point of saying she thought it was going to feel more comfortable there, and she just isn't getting it. Like, she's not feeling Dragonstone.
I don't remember that.
Yeah, she did. She said it. And that's all I have to say about it.
So we just want to noted that we think it is strongly foreshadowed, it makes sense, and is something that we believe will occur. If we go back to Bran's scenes at the Tower of Joy, they are, despite it being an entire room, we are really honed in on this bed and Ned near it, and then at one point Bran on the other side, with the exception of the sword being knocked and a cut to a person standing next to the bed for a split second. That is really all we have.
Except for two other things. There are two midwives in that room.
I never saw a second
There's
midwife.
a second one. There's one that goes off this way.
I think you and I actually talked about this and went back and you were wrong. But
either
way, my point, in my opinion, still stands that if there is another baby in that area, it would be entirely possible for them to show it and not have spoiled or not have ruined that surprise with the way they filmed the previous scenes.
That's absolutely true.
So,
and of course now we have the consequences of it. What does Jon do when Bran and Sam tell him? Because they're going to tell him initially, "Hey, we're sorry. You just banged your aunt." But I think that it's more complicated than that, and that we're going to see another Bran vision, which really makes it so tragic for Ned. It was already tragic for him what he had to do to protect Jon and dishonor himself at least twice, once there and once with his daughters. And then for him to know that there might be a child of his sister running for her life in another continent. I mean, that's devastating.
So let me add one more thing that my mom and I stress when we explain this to people. The person that they cast for Lyanna.
Oh, yes.
If we're wrong, then Dany is not a Stark at all. There is no Stark in Dany, which means she is not related to Ned or Lyanna. The person they cast for Lyanna looks strikingly like Dany. Impossibly like Dany for it to, in my opinion, not be some sort of foreshadowing.
You could superimpose their faces on each other, really.
I'm trying my best to share this.
I forgot about that. Thank you.
So I'm assuming that y'all can see that picture right now. I mean, that looks like Dany. So does that. They are not exactly like Dany, but
give her blonde hair.
Give her blonde hair, and that looks a heck of a lot like Dany.
Dany's got dark eyebrows too. So, okay.
All right. Anything else?
No, baby.
Thank y'all for watching.